Hey guys, how's it going? Today I'm bringing you guys a PvP guide for Havoc Demon Hunter. So this will be my first PvP guide, so I don't really know how to go about it. But all I'm gonna really do is discuss all of the main abilities that Demon Hunters have, and the honor talents that were given, and try to, I guess, explain in what situations you'd want to take certain talents and/or honor talents. And then I'll be posting a video linking to this video or a video linking to another video that kind of shows me just doing random battleground and trying to explain everything that I do and why I do it. So we'll just start with the talents first of all. I like Fellblade. It's a gap closer. It has a decent, not decent range. I think it's like 10 yards, 15 yards. 15-yard range, does fire damage, so it ignores armor, so it'll do more damage on tanks than your normal, I guess, melee's auto attacks or whatever would. Fell Mastery, I don't think anyone takes this in PvP or in general, really. Fellblade's kind of the go-to talent. And your melee and normal abilities have a chance to reset your Fellblade, so you're going to want to use it whenever it's up. Unless you know that someone's going to be able to get away from you, then you'd want to save it and then just use it to close that gap. Even then, we have a lot of gap closers as a Demon Hunter, so you're kind of just going to want to use it as many times as it's up, because it generates a decent amount of fury, and that's not even counting if you're taking demon blades or anything like that. So the next talent, you can use Demonic Appetite. The main incentive to using that is the fury that it grants and the healing that it gives. So if you don't know, whenever you consume a soul fragment, you get healed for, it says 25% of your max health, but I'm pretty sure it's reduced in PvP. Even then, that's still a very decent heal in PvP situations. So whenever you're chaos striking, it'll basically give you a chance to spawn a soul fragment. So I'll try to get it to work here. There it is. You'll see there I spawned 2 soul fragments and got healed for 307,000, which is 10% of my health. So it's decent healing, it's decent self-sustain, but I find that more often than not, the souls don't actually come off the target enough in PvP, so I usually just like taking Demon Blades. I haven't really experimented with Demonic Appetite over Demon Blades, but I still prefer Demon Blades in most situations just because it's the passive playstyle, and you can just sit around and get extra shadow damage on people and generate more fury. And you can generate fury while you're using Chaos Strike too. It's just a good way to generate passive fury. Chaos Cleave you don't really use. I don't think I've seen anyone use this in PvP. Most people take Bloodlit right now, or not Bloodlit, First Blood, just because every time you blade dance, first of all, does decent damage and increases your dodge chance by 100% for 1 second. So usually if you use First Blood, you'd kind of want to time it with, if possible, when someone that's a melee tries to burst you, such as a Fury Warrior or maybe a Ret Pally or a Frost Death Knight. And when you're spec'd into First Blood, it's going to do that decently large hit right there at the end. You'll see at the end it hit for 485,000 on that target dummy. And then compared to when you're not taking that, it hits for about 176,000. So it's a decent damage buff to one of your, I guess, abilities that has a decently short cooldown and gives you 100% dodge chance for 1 second. You can use Bloodlit. I would suggest it if you're going against like a mage or a warlock, just because it's extra damage at ranged. And usually if you're getting kited a lot, it'll still, if you're getting kited a lot, you won't be able to get your first blood off, and it's not as useful as going against a melee. So you'd probably want to switch it up with Bloodlit just so it does that ranged bleed damage. I'll just show you an example here. I do have the bracer, so it's going to do a little bit extra damage, but 110,000. I'm pretty sure in PvP hits for like 75,000, anywhere around there. For the 104 talent row, I like using Soul Rending, which gives you 70% leech in Metamorphosis form. And then that itself is, I think, pretty self-explanatory. It just gives you heals based on the amount of damage that you do. I don't think anyone I've seen uses Desperate Instincts. Basically causes your blur, which is this spell, increases your chance to dodge by 50% and reduces all damage taken by 35%. So it reduces or increases the damage from 35% 10% to 50% reduced damage taken, and it automatically triggers it when you fall below 35% health. So this is good if you don't really know when to use blur, I guess, but I'll explain that in a little bit in like the situation that you'd kind of want to use your defensives, even though we only have 2. Netherwalk, I've never used it. I assume it's good if you're doing 2v2s or 3v3s and you have a healer, and you could just, if you're getting focused really hard, you could just press Netherwalk and you don't take any damage and you get 100% increased movement speed. So I guess that's the incentive to taking that talent. I really don't take it for battlegrounds or anything like that. On to the 106 talent row. Nemesis, which it's just a 25% damage increase, and then in PvP, I'm pretty sure if you kill the target that you have marked, it increases your damage by 25% against humanoids for another 10 or 15 seconds. Something around there. I think Nemesis is the best choice in this row. Momentum can be good if you're finding yourself using Fel Rush a lot, and you find yourself getting kited a lot. Especially if you're going against a mage or warlock, because every time you'll go on that person, you'll generally be using Fellblade to gap close and Bloodlit. So whenever you Fel Rush, you'll have that 20% damage increase, which is pretty helpful, but I don't think it's as good in most situations as a Nemesis, where you can just pop it instantly with your offensive cooldowns. And it lasts only 4 seconds, which isn't that long. Then the other talent choice that you have is Fel Eruption. In PvP, I find this to be, it's okay. On a scale of 1 to 10 of like usefulness in most situations, it's probably a 6. It does a decent amount of damage for the little fury that it costs and the short cooldown that it has, which is 30 seconds. But the stun that it actually gives for 2 seconds isn't all that useful. If the person's permanently like immune to stuns for while you use it, it does increase damage. But even then, I wouldn't say it's as useful as either of these talents. But if you're finding yourself getting focused a lot and need to peel for yourself, I would suggest Fel Eruption, because it does a decent amount of damage and it can still be used as like a 1-button burst. But I don't think it's valuable enough to take over the damage increases in arena situations. For the 108 talent, Demon Reborn resets the cooldown of your I-Beam, Chaos Nova, and Blur. This can be useful if you have someone that just constantly slows. So if you're getting trained and you pop Metamorphosis, so you can use Blur, use Demon Reborn, use Metamorphosis, and then just have another Blur up. So that just negates all more damage, and it resets the cooldown on your Chaos Nova and Blur. And then whenever you Chaos Nova, you have a chance to spawn a Lesser Soul Shard, which gives you a heal, which is what I described earlier with the Demonic Appetite. Unleashed Power just reduces the Fury cost of Chaos Nova and reduces its cooldown. So this is just, it's a stun reducer. I guess technically you could get more healing off of it, but I think Unleashed Power is probably the most worthless talent in this row, unless you're running like Mythic Pluses or maybe South Shore versus Torn Mill Brawl. Anything where just there's a lot of enemies in the small area, you could use it, get a decent amount of soul shards, and stun all those people within your radius. But other than that, I usually take Master of Glaive just because I like the slow that it gives and the 2 charges of Throw Glaive that it gives. That paired with Bloodlit, I think it's pretty strong. I usually don't take Demon Reborn. I might have to experiment with it just for the Blur cooldown. But other than that, I'd suggest Master of the Glaive in almost all of your situations. The slow that it gives is pretty decent. And, yeah, it's just range damage. Extra range damage that you can press when you don't have anything else to press too. So for the last row of talents, and probably the most important, is your 110 talents. Chaos Blades increases all damage done by 34.6%, which is based on your mastery, and while active, your auto attacks do 150% increased damage and cause chaos damage. This is good if you're going against, again, a plate wearer, someone with a lot of armor. It'll basically ignore the armor and do chaos damage instead, and gives you that damage buff. There's also Fel Barrage. Also Chaos Blades goes really well with Nemesis or Momentum. Fel Barrage, at your command, unleash Fel, damage inflicting 146,000 chaos damage to your target and nearby enemies for each charge, max 5 charges. Your damaging abilities have a chance to generate a charge. This is good if you're going against range. Again, It has a decent range, so I'm trying to, if I remember right, it's like 30 yards. Yeah, 30-yard range on one of your bottom row talents. So you'll see here, I'm just going to go on this guy. Let's see how much damage it does. About 1,000,000 on one target. And then, I know you do get charges back pretty decently fast, if I remember right. I already have 2 charges back. So it's pretty good. I know it's getting nerfed next patch, but it's good if you're going against range, and it's also good if you're going against a tank. It's pretty versatile when it comes to it, but I just prefer either having Chaos Blades or Demonic over it. And lastly, let me talk about Demonic, which is probably my favorite. I-Beam causes you to enter demon form for 8 seconds after it finishes dealing damage. I think this is personally the best for random battlegrounds. Honestly, all the bottom row talents are pretty viable. I think Blizzard did a really good job at balancing the bottom row talents. You can take almost any of them in any situation, and they all will perform, I'd say, almost the same. Maybe in certain situations, maybe in Arena, you'd want Chaos Blades just for that extra burst. Maybe in certain situations, you need that extra range damage, so you take Fel Barrage. Or in certain situations, you'd need the healing from I-Beam, which is, I'll show you here. I'll I-Beam, and then I'll go in Demon form. And now you'll see here that I just get a lot of heals just from my damage. So that's why I take I-Beam. And then whenever you pick up a Soul Shard, you'll be able to reduce the cooldown on your I-Beam by 5 seconds. So if you find yourself, I don't know, getting a lot of Soul Shards, you'll be able to have more Metamorphosis up, which leads to more healing and more damage, which is why I do take Demonic. So on to Honor Talents. I take Gladiator's Medallion in almost every situation. I don't see any situation really where you take Adaption or Relentless. Maybe if you find yourself just getting stunned a shit ton, you could take Relentless, but I don't take Adaption ever in most situations. For the second row, I take Reinforced Armor a lot, just for the extra 10% health. I usually don't take Hardiness, and Sparring can be good in situations where you're going against a lot of melee. Usually if I'm going against 2 melees and 2v2s, I'll take Sparring over Reinforced Armor, and usually you can tell the difference in the damage reduction. For the third row, there's Solitude, which increases your damage by 15% and attack speed by 15% when there are no allies with you. This is pretty good if you find yourself 1v1ing a lot or just being solo. Maybe in 2v2 if you find your partner getting focused a lot and then it ends up just being you could take Solitude. For Glimpse, which is you automatically gain Blur for 3 seconds after you use Vengeful Retreat. It's pretty useful when you're trying to get away. Blur itself is a really good defensive cooldown. It gives you 50% dodge chance and 35% damage reduction. So if you find yourself getting focused a lot, you can pair Glimpse with, Prepared, which reduces the cooldown of Vengeful Retreat to 15 seconds. So every 15 seconds you'd have a 3-second Blur, which is fairly decent. But I'd say for every talent in the third row talent of the Honor talent row, which is a lot of talents in one sentence, there's definitely different situations where you'd want to take them. I haven't used Cover of Darkness at all, which I know I should. Basically increases the chance for you and your allies to avoid damage while within your darkness effect by 50%. So, it's baseline, it's 20%, so that means whenever you're in it, summons darkness around you in an 8-yard radius, granting friendly targets a 20% chance to avoid all damage from an attack. And then this bumps it up to 70%, if I'm reading this right. Yeah. So, in PvP, if you use this, you're basically almost guaranteed to not take damage. It's almost like a Demon Hunter bubble when you take this, but you'll still take a little bit of damage just because of that 30% chance that you actually will get hit. This is good if you really just need to get out of a sticky situation. If you're getting focused a lot, maybe if someone's getting a ton of Chaos Bolts on you, you can use this and most likely avoid it. I mean, if you have a lot of people on you, you can use this too, and then mix that with just Vengeful Retreating after it, and Blur, and Blade Dance. You're pretty hard to kill. Going on to the next row. Anytime your damage... anytime you take magical damage, just you gain 10 Fury. This is usually my go-to. Just makes it so you have more Fury, more Chaos Strikes, more abilities, more I-Beams. more everything really. If you're taking Demonic Appetite, you get a lot of soul shards, a lot of healing. I usually don't switch his talent out unless I know that the other talents would be more useful. For reverse magic, dispels all harmful effects from yourself and all nearby allies within 10 yards and sends them back to the original caster if possible. This would be good if you're going against an Affliction Warlock, Shadow Priest, any class that has a lot of dots. If you use reverse magic on an Affliction Warlock when they have like 4 unstable afflictions on you, it would do a decent amount of damage to them. That's really the only situation where I'd find reverse magic useful. Myself personally, I really don't find myself using it all that much. Unless I'm in arena with, obviously, an Affliction Warlock or a Shadow Priest on the other team. Eye of Leothris. You keep a watchful eye over the enemy. Whenever they cast a harmful spell, they will suffer 6% of their health and shadow damage. Restoration of Eye of Leothris. I've never used this. I imagine if the enemy spellcaster doesn't know what this ability does, and they keep casting while they use a harmful spell, they will take a decent amount of damage. But I'm not sure if it does max health damage or just 6% of their current health damage, which is why I usually don't take it. It also has a 40-yard range, which is really good, but a 45-second cooldown, which is eh. But if you're going against casters a lot, this is basically I guess you could almost spell lock them. But if they know what the ability does, or if they just don't care about the damage they're taking, it really doesn't do much. God, I keep hitting my mic. What is this? 5th row talent. Demonic Origins, the cooldown of Metamorphosis is reduced by 2 minutes, but now lasts 15 seconds. And that's going down from your normal 30 seconds of Metamorphosis. I think this is probably one of the better talents. I don't like Mana Rift all that much. I'll get to that. And I don't usually use Awaken the Demon Within, even though it's kind of good. Demonic Origins, I think, is the best. It buffs your damage while you're not in Metamorphosis 2 by 10%, so if you use that with Solitude, it's just a 25% damage increase when there's no one around you. Fixing my mic, so, okay. Mana Rift. I'm out of breath. You manifest a 6-yard wide mana rift under the feet of the target. After 2 seconds, it erupts, dealing 8% of the enemy's maximum health and chaos damage, and destroys 8% of the enemy's total mana. This is good if you have someone that just roots a lot, maybe a Frost Mage on your team. Can basically, if you use it on a healer, it'll just get rid of their mana, so I imagine this would be probably the only situation where you'd use this. Most of the time people just walk out of it, or just not see it and don't really care about it, because it does 8% of their total health, which is, I don't think that's a lot in PvP. It's about 300,000 with the scaled up health, or the PvP templates. Awaken the Demon Within. To reach 50% max health, you gain Metamorphosis for 6 seconds. This effect has 1 minute cooldown. In addition, the duration of Metamorphosis will be refreshed up to a maximum of 6 seconds while at below 20% health. In more situations than not, if you're below 20% health, you're just going to die. Most classes have an execute. Maybe if you're running soul rending and you're just getting a dick ton of damage out, then you might live. But other than that, I think Demonic Origins is the best. Makes your Metamorphosis a 2 minute cooldown, makes it 15 seconds, which is still the window that Nemesis is on, and Chaos Blades is in, so I feel like it synergizes the best with your other talents. And now for the final row. Mana Break. Let's start with, I guess, left. Detainment. Imprison's PvP duration is increased by 1 second. Not really that useful. The targets become immune to damage and healing while imprisoned. This is good if you're really trying to, I guess, CC down healers in battlegrounds or anywhere where there's not a lot of communication. It's also good in arenas, I guess, if you're running with like an Affliction Warlock for some reason, you just decide to hard switch. Because usually if you detain someone who's in an arena, the dots will break the CC, and that's just kind of a waste. So that's really when you take that talent. Rain from above, you fly into the air out of harm's way while floating and gain access to Fell Lance, allowing you to deal damage to enemies below. This is good if you're going against melees. If you're going against range can still attack you while you're in the air. But the ability that you get while you're flying in the air does 5% of the target's max health, by the way. So if you're going against like a Guardian Druid or Blood Death Knight or anything where they have a shit ton of health for some reason and they're melee, this would probably be the talent you'd want to take. The last talent, Mana Break, deals 5% of the target's max health and chaos damage. Damage increased the lower target's maximum mana, or current mana, up to 25% of the target's maximum health. Again, this is good if you're maybe running arenas, the arena's gone for a while. You decide to switch to the healer because he has no mana, you use this and it'll do a decent amount of damage. I've personally never used this because I don't arena enough to actually use it, and or get someone low enough on mana to actually use it, but even then it still does 5% target's max health, and then that goes up to 25%. So if you find yourself in a situation where you find someone with low mana, 3v3 arena, in other words, you'd probably want to use this talent. It seems decent from what I'm reading. So that would be, I guess, most of the talents that Havoc Demon Hunters have. As of now, I'm probably just going to go over the main defensives that we have and our gap closers and stuff like that. So I guess let's start with Chaos Nova. Stuns people, does a little bit of chaos damage. It's like the class stun that every class gets. Darkness, already talked about this, basically reduces the chance that an attack will hit you. Consume Magic, this is a kind of special, has a 20-yard range, and it gives you Fury if you actually interrupt someone with it. So it's kind of a special class interrupt. I think that most classes, their interrupt should have some resource gaining aspect to it. So like, if you pummel someone as a warrior, you'd get rage. If you spell lock someone, you'd get a damage, like 10% damage increase, I don't know. I think this is probably one of the better interrupts. Has a range, gives you Fury. So if you're low on Fury, you see someone casting, just use it. While you're in Metamorphosis, you'll get that extra Fury, more healing, more damage. Synergizes pretty well with just basically every kind of aspect of the Demon Hunter kit. Blur, already talked about it. Increases your dodge chance by 50%, reduces damage you take by 35%. It's kind of pretty self-explanatory. We have wings. You can float. And Foul Rush, it's basically a gap closer, but it's not targetable, but basically sends you in a straight line wherever you're going. It's pretty, if you get used to it, I'd say it's probably the best gap closer. You can fuck around with Foul Rush and Vengeful Retreat, so if you get used to it, you can like get to the point where you're doing crazy flips and shit and have decent amount of gap close and just, decent distance, I guess, covered in a short amount of time. Going over Artifact Talent, you're basically going to want to use this and then Chaos Nova the person while they're standing in it. In most situations, that's what you're going to have to do. Most people realize what the artifact ability looks like as a Havoc Demon Hunter and they'll just walk out of it. So if they walk out of it, all your damage, it's basically just gone. Spectral Sight, it basically unveils stealth targets or demons. So if you're going against a rogue, you can just use this and then Glaive Toss and then get them out of stealth. That's basically it. That is Demon Hunter in a nutshell. It's one of the more simple classes, I'd say. If you really want to go into artifacts, with the amount of artifact knowledge that every class has right now, it doesn't really matter. I don't even have this unlocked yet, but I guess the only noteworthy things are Feast on Souls. When you consume a soul fragment, the remaining cooldown on I-Beam Chaos Nova is reduced by 5 seconds. So if you're running, Demonic Appetite and Demonic, you can basically get a lot of self heals off, and then that mixed with the Chaos Nova thing where you generate a soul fragment whenever you stun. There's 40% chance to do that. You can do that and then just have a lot of self heals. There's also this where you generate 15 Fury each time you dodge an attack or spell, so you basically get a lot of Fury while you're in Blur. There's this where if you're in a tightly packed area and you Blade Dance, the damage of the Blade Dance itself is going to be increased by 3% for each target. That's about it. Everything else is pretty passive. If you really need that movement speed, you can use Blur for a 30% movement increase. Other than that, that is, I guess, my guide on Havoc Demon Hunters and me explaining everything. It was literally just me talking for 20 minutes, but Yeah, this video will be linked to a battleground of me trying to explain all the abilities I use and why I'm using them. So, yeah, I'm sure the video will be upper right corner, somewhere around, just literally anywhere around this box right now, but as always, thank you for watching. If you find this video helpful, feel free to give it a thumbs up. It helps me out a lot. If you guys have any questions, comments, tips, or concerns, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. And if you want to do so, feel free to subscribe to my channel. I release WoW videos every single day. So, yeah, as always, thank you for watching, and until next time, I'll see you guys later.